This is Air America Radio, the Jack Rice Show, coming to you live from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And beside me is Jerome Mapp, MC1 Mapp. The reason I wanted to talk to MC1 Mapp is this. It's not based upon his experience, really. There's a ton of this, too. It's based upon one thing, and I mean this. I'm thinking about this as a father of 4 girls myself. We were talking about sort of the big picture things, you know. We were talking about what's going on in Washington, and this is above sort of your pay grade. Most of the people here's pay grade. But the one thing that you said that really struck me, and it did, was you said, you know, I don't know what's going to happen here. We stay, we go, whatever. But here's what I do know. I missed my 10-year-old son's birthday. And I thought to myself, damn. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about the sacrifices that you make to be here.
Well, when I originally came down here, I knew I was going to miss his birthday. His birthday was April 24th, and I deployed March 28th this year. And I was worried about that because his 10th birthday was one he was looking forward to the most. It was
double digits, as I recall. This is a big deal.
Exactly. He was hitting double digits, and I wasn't going to be there for it. And there was a little sadness in his voice, but he understood that, you know, I had to make that sacrifice. And I was ordered to active duty back in January. So we knew when that day came for me to go, it was going to be a little hard.
So when we talk about sacrifice, I guess I was thinking about yours. I never honestly even contemplated the fact that the sacrifice was an entire family sacrifice. It was also your 10-year-old sons, too.
Exactly. For a lot of these troopers who are married, their families sacrifice as well. It's not just a trooper who deploys overseas or comes to a place like Guantanamo. It's the families they leave behind and the children they leave behind.
Do you find that people frequently miss that? They'll talk about those in uniform, and I still remember, especially after 9/11, you would hear the reference to, think about the heroes, and you would hear this over and over and over again. But I also noticed that regularly it was the men and women in uniform that would be acknowledged, but not their families. I mean, the sacrifices that you make, I suspect your wife makes right alongside you, your son makes right alongside you too.
Correct. And that's the way it's always been, going back to, you know, the Revolutionary War times. When the troops deploy, the families are left behind. The families have to go on with their lives. And unfortunately, that one spouse isn't there to share the responsibility. So the burden becomes on that spouse who's left behind, whether it's a husband or a wife.
Dan Pashman, my producer, and I were talking about you the other night after we were eating or something, and it's funny because in some ways we referred to you like Danny Glover, right? In the sense of like you're like this guy who was with other people in Lethal Weapon specifically. Where remember where he's sort of the seasoned guy who's getting ready to retire, and there's these younger guys around them. Well, you're that seasoned guy. Not that you're an old guy, but relatively speaking, I guess you are. Nice, huh? But if we think about that, I mean, you are getting ready to retire, and you are that seasoned guy. Give me perspective on what it is that you're seeing down here, and what it is that you see happening right now in the military.
Well, I'll give you the perspective of here first. I deployed down here or agreed to this deployment because I wanted to come down here and be part of this operation. I was in the Pentagon on 9/11, and so coming down here just kind of completed the circle for me. And
how so? I mean, explain to me what was your experience on 9/11, and then tell me how that completes the circle just to come back down to Guantanamo Bay.
Well, I wanted the chance to see Khalid Sheikh Mohammad in person, and I almost had that opportunity when they had the commissions about a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, he didn't show up in court, and I didn't get that opportunity, and I kind of felt that was a little lost opportunity for me. But it just gave me satisfaction knowing that they have him incarcerated down here. And, my family was with me on 9/11, and actually they weren't in the Pentagon on 9/11, but my wife was working for the government at the time, and she and my son she had to stroll my son home about 3 miles to Southwest D.C. And she was working downtown at the old executive office building. So for me, it was coming down here was sort of a chance to be close to this operation and to kind of purge some of the emotions I may have had on 9/11. As far as the troopers concerned, I've been blessed to have worked with a lot of younger troopers, and they've probably given me as much, they probably heightened my experience as much as all the travels I've done and all the deployments I've done.
I think about the military commissions, and again, this was the hearings with Khalid Sheikh Mohammad, which was scheduled for this last week. You said it was important, you wanted to see him. Why?
I just wanted to see what evil looked like when it's embodied. I'd never been that close to anybody that evil before, and the fact that I was almost one of his victims in the Pentagon, it would have made it full circle if I had actually had been in that courtroom and seen him walk in shackles.
Does it ever surprise you? I think back to those who are in custody, those who are detainees now, and over the years as detainees, and this is the third time you've been down here in Guantanamo, isn't that right?
Well, this is the third time down in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, the base. I was down here before when, this is the first time with the Joint Task Force. Before, I was down here on a ship. We came through here for refresher training. In fact, when we were down here last time, 5 of my shipmates were killed in a traffic accident. And so there was a little bit of sadness, and I hadn't seen the memorial until I came down here for the Joint Task Force.
I guess what I'm thinking about, though, is, again, you have seen a lot of the detainees who are in the camps now. Does it confirm what you believe? You mentioned with Khalid Sheikh Mohammad, you wanted to see what evil looked like. I can tell you, when I look at these guys, and what I heard before, again, from the likes of Donald Rumsfeld, was that the people who are in these bases are the worst of the worst of the worst. And yet, when I look at them, I don't really, to be honest, I don't see evil. I just see guys. Do you see something different than I see?
Well, it's not so much the other detainees. It really was Khalid Sheikh Mohammad. He was the focus of my trip coming down here. I don't really, when I see the other guys, I just see detainees behind a fence, and I'm down here just doing the job that I'm doing, helping the media get through those camps so they can see for themselves what this operation is all about.
How hard is it to just see guys behind a fence? I mean, you actually have to sort of disassociate yourself and not make this a personal thing. And yet, you're telling me at first you wanted to see KSM, you wanted to see Mukhtar the Brain, you wanted to see Khalid Sheikh Mohammad in the flesh because he was this personification of evil. Now, if that's not personal, you were at the Pentagon. I mean, if this isn't personal, I don't know what is. But you have to be able to disassociate yourself from the rest. I mean, isn't that hard to do?
No, it's not really hard to do. I'm down here, I'm in the military, I've been in the military for over 20 years. And I know anytime I'm called up to go on an operation, you know, it's really not about my personal feelings. It's more about my professional feelings and how I carry myself.
With more than 20 years in service, and you're getting ready to retire, you're looking back like Danny Glover and as we described, huh? That's right. In Lethal Weapon, you know, except for obviously Danny Glover always gets shot in Lethal Weapon. Usually, I don't mean it like that.
I've been fortunate.
Well, that's good. Looking back, what is it that you see coming for you now after all of these years? Where do you go next?
Well, I'm a mobilized reservist, and I did 8 years on active duty. I left active duty, went in the Marine Corps, and then I rejoined the Navy Reserves right before 9/11. I still work for the Department of Defense as a writer editor, and once this operation is over, I'm going to put my papers in and retire from the military, retire from the Navy side, but I'll continue working for the Department of Defense as a civilian.
Jerome, thank you very much. I sure appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Again, this is Jack Rice with one guy talking about sacrifice, and it's a small story, but from my perspective, again, this is one of those true ones. You just miss your 10-year-old's birthday. It's something you never get back. This is an example of sacrifices that are made by a lot of people all of the time. Stay with us right here on The Jack Rice Show, coming to you live from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba on Air America Radio.